Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farce. James said something that caught me off guard. Black out the Dina is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Live from historic Lamert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast to listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, two conversations. It's Monday, so up first, Smiley and West. We'll talk with Dr. Cornel West about a number of trending topics, including Donald Trump announcing that he is federalizing police in D.C. and deploying National Guard troops. They are literally on the streets of the nation's capital right now. Set to do a press conference, I think while I'm on the air live today, about why he's made this decision. But first, there were troops here in L.A. where I sit that we didn't ask for, and with a black female mayor named Karen Bass, and now the black female mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is being put upon with National Guard troops that she did not ask for either. I'll leave it there for now. We'll talk to Cornel West about that and a great deal more, as we do every Monday and Thursday at the top of the second hour. On the B side of hour two, former Labor Secretary Julie Su on the latest jobs report, how close we are to recession, and Trump firing folks because he doesn't like their numbers. In our third hour, two more conversations. Up first, are we in the midst of another hot labor summer with more strikes on the horizon? We'll talk about it with Fred Raymond of the AFL-CIO. And on the B side of hour three, a conversation with the founder and artistic director of the Lula Washington Dance Theater, Lula Washington, as the theater celebrates its 45th anniversary. But in this first hour, scholars Adolph Reed and Kenneth W. Warren on their new book, Black Studies, Cultural Politics, and the Evasion of Inequality, the Farce This Time. Adolph Reed, how are you, sir? Adolph Reed, are you on mute? Unmute yourself, man, if you are. Unmute yourself, Adolph Reed. Let's try Kenneth Warren. Professor Warren, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you for having us on.
It's good to have you on. Did we get Adolph Reed yet? Adolph Reed, are you there? Going once, going twice?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. And I just want to thank you. Good to hear your voice. And don't forget to give my best to Cornel in the next hour.
He's probably listening to you right now, so you heard it, but I'll pass it on anyway. Glad to have you both on. I spent some time, of course, last week going through the text, and I've got a number of questions that I want to move through in this hour. Mr. Warren, let me start with you. And I want to just read here a couple of things from the text. that will, I think, help frame this hour better. Let me just say at the outset, it is impossible to do justice to a book that is this dense with essays written by both of these scholars on a variety of subject matter. I can't do justice to everything in this text in less than 60 minutes. What I can do is to try to frame this thing as best I can in a way that will help you understand what you're going to get when you get inside of this new text called Black Studies, Culture, Politics, and the Evasion of Inequality, the Farce this time. First Warren, let me start by asking you to unpack the name of the text. Somebody asked famously, what's in a name? There's a whole lot in the naming of this book. Just unpack the title for me for starters, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. We start, in some sense, with the idea that for some time now, but certainly since the consolidation of Black studies in the academy, the desire or the attempt to produce a justification for the distinctiveness or the separateness of things Black has actually impeded a true understanding of the forces that have produced the kinds of inequality that have disproportionately affected Black Americans. And we track this not only through at the moment of the consolidation of Black studies, but all the way through back to the late 19th century, looking at all of the forces that led to the consolidation of Jim Crow, the presumption that within a democratic system, the only way to address the needs and the goals of Black Americans was to insist on the distinctiveness, the exotic nature of Black concerns. And so the book looks at all that has kind of contributed to that, both culturally and politically. Why in the face of the continual ineffectualness of this kind of politics, the Black Studies regime continues to insist on the discovery of or rediscovery of Black distinctiveness as the first step necessary to address ongoing, persistent, and at the current moment, egregious, commitments to, by the ruling regime to undermine of all of the forces for the public good, for democratic policies and procedures.
There's a lot there. I don't know that referring to it as a Black Studies regime was an indictment. Shots fired, man down, man down. Not sure that the use of that word regime as it relates to Black Studies is an indictment. As I said, we'll unpack that when we come forward, just getting started in this hour. I also want to ask at the outset here of this conversation, again, trying to frame it as best I can, what Adolph Reed thinks the condition is. Put another way, what is the state of the Black radical tradition? So I'm coming to you when we come forward, Adolph Reed. What is the state, as you see it, of the Black radical tradition? And just to give you a sense of what this book is about in greater detail, and why it's going to be a great hour with Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren. I quote now from the preface in their text: challenging the prevailing assertion that long-standing white animus against non-white peoples sufficiently and adequately explains deepening injustice, past injustice, or present inequality, these essays argue that such thinking fails to fully explain America's past and leaves us ill-equipped to handle the continuing challenges in the present. That's a bit of what Mr. Warren just gave to you, but I wanted to share with you in black and white as they write in the preface of the book, so you know what's on the inside and what you're going to get this hour as we move through Tavis Smiley. Glad you tuned in.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Some things can steal your sunshine.
Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit Pfizerforall.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's one question every couple needs to answer. What if something happens to us? Kids, a house, a life you've built, but no estate plan? That's a risk you don't want to take. With Trust and Will, it's fast, secure, and easy to protect what matters most. Start your plan today at trustandwill.com. Use code RADIO to save 20%. Check it off your list. One less thing to worry about. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent. And the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember, no warrant, no key. Fly privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights.
Hey, we all got rights.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Adolph Reed, and Kenneth Warren on their new book, Black Studies, Cultural Politics, and the Evasion of Inequality, The Farce. This time, before I go to Adolph Reed, Mr. Warren, back to you first. The use of that word regime, your reference to the Black Studies regime, was that just a creative word choice or an indictment?
It's an indictment. And the force of it is this. It is absolutely important to study texts by Black writers, literature by Black writers, the politics that have affected the lives of Black Americans. But when we talk about the Black Studies regime, what we really are indicting is a presumption that a set of departments or a scholarly approach can somehow represent the needs of all Black people, at the current moment and across time. The presumption that there is one set of needs that characterize, or that there's one thing that characterizes, a population in this United States that's larger than the entire population of Canada as having a singular interest. And the regime that we are, you could say, indicting are the approaches that continue to naturalize that as a way of thinking about the state of Black Americans at the present moment.
As Sam and Dave said, Adolph Reed, hold on, I'm coming. Hold on, I'm coming. One quick follow-up to Kenneth Warren. How do you respond to people at the outset of this conversation, the listening right now, who are like, with all of the hell that Black folk are catching right now, from Donald Trump on down, the pushback against teaching the truth, banning of certain books, et cetera, et cetera. I got a broad audience. I ain't got to give the litany of stuff I'm talking about. You know, Adolph Reed knows, this audience knows. The timing, for starters, say nothing of the indictment itself. How do you respond to folks who say that Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren are just piling on?
Uh, well, first of all, you could say they're wrong in terms of the timing. This is a critique that Adolph and I have been pursuing for the better part of 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to show is that where we are now, how we've gotten to this pass, is the result of a studied avoidance of these issues that we have been trying to get our colleagues and people more broadly to address, as I said, for the better part of 30 years. So this is not piling on. This is, in fact, actually, it's an encouragement to study the history
mm-hmm.
of Black literature, Black politics in this country, to understand how we've gotten here. And that's not going to, and that understanding is not an understanding that insists on the, that nothing has changed. In fact, it's the kind of claims that nothing has changed that have actually led us to this point where rather than producing a kind of solidarity that can meet the challenge of the current moment, what we see is a kind of doubling down on the ways that actually undermine the the sort of broader democratic constituencies that we actually need to really push back against this fascist regime.
I would not be so mindless as to suggest that nothing has changed. I do think that oftentimes even scholars ask the wrong question. And if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. The question is not are Black folk better off today than we were 100, 200 years ago? That's not the question. By that standard, of course we're better off than we were 100 or 200 years ago. The question is, it seems to me, Mr. Warren, whether or not, but how Black folk today are doing against white folk today. Not whether we're better off than we were 200 years ago. How are we stacking up today? And the evidence is incontrovertible. Black people still lag far behind in every single leading economic indicator category. In some ways, economically speaking, Black people are still 3/5 of a person. So I'm not going to say nothing has changed, but it's moving really, really, really slow, like a turtle's pace. Put a pin in that for now. We'll get back to that later. Adolph Reed, what is the status, as you see it, the condition of the Black radical tradition, sir?
Well, I think the Black radical tradition is a complicated matter. I think people make up these traditions as is the case as a rule. Most traditions are constructed and read back onto the past. What I think is a little more problematic for us than the notion of a Black radical tradition is the idea of a singular Black freedom movement or Black liberation struggle that's been coherent and pursuing a singular objective at some big level of abstraction like freedom or emancipation or whatever over time, because the fact is that Black people, like everybody else in the world, live within the history that they inhabit and experience. And one of our problems is, and it's a problem that Ken and I have written about both in this book and separately as well as together elsewhere. It's a problem of condensing this large, varied population with internally inconsistent interests or at least differing interests as a singular entity. And as a way that even using gross aggregate racial comparisons winds up, consciously or not, inscribing or concealing really significant distinctions among Black Americans themselves. So, for instance, racial wealth gap, or the assertion, correct assertion that on the average, life is better for Black people than it was 100 years ago, and it's still in some ways worse, or still in some ways substantially unequal to whites, also kind of depends on which segments of the Black population that you're looking at. So for instance, and I'll shut up with this point, that since the 1970s, growth in income and wealth especially has been greatest among the top top income tiers, right, the highest class levels among Black Americans.
Okay.
Much less so for everyone else. And there are reasons for those differences or for those distinctions that have to do with national policy orientations whose impacts have fallen disproportionately on different segments of the Black population.
But how, I hear your point, Adolph, but isn't that the problem though? That too many people outside of our community, and I just don't want you and Kenneth Warren aiding and abetting them. Too many people outside of our community do exactly what you've just done. They take the data and they talk about how a particular slice, a tier of Black people are doing better now than they'd ever done, and they conflate that success of the individual with the group, and there's no comparison between the two.
Well, see, I think a part of the problem here is what categories of doing well and doing poorly we actually look at, right? And there's a tendency within going discourse, like on both sides of the veil, frankly, to lump together questions like, well, first of all, like to lump together the difference between relative and absolute, and also to lump together differences among categories of doing well or doing poorly. For example, employment, income, housing, right, on the one hand, or a relative susceptibility to police violence or susceptibility to discrimination falling like in other categories. And it makes sense. And even health disparities, or like under COVID, for instance, which people talked about a lot. What lumping the what taking relative what taking relative inequality as absolute inequality does is it shifts our attention away from the differential impacts of regressive public policies and private actions on different segments of the overall Black population. You follow me? So that one example that just stands out in my mind, especially now because of Kennedy and at HHS, it's COVID disparity. You recall, like in the early days of the pandemic, people tended to look and see gross racial disparities in contracting the disease, in morbidity under it.
Yep.
But as time went on, it turned out that those gross racial disparities weren't the real story. The real story was how different groups of Black people and brown people, for that matter, were situated in the society and in the economy such that they lived in more congested conditions. They worked jobs that exposed them to infection more. Overall public health conditions,
correct,
were lower because of their income, occupation, and the horror of a profit-driven healthcare system. So it turned out that what looked like a racial disparity was actually a disparity that spoke to class and political economy much more than it did to race. And
it did, Adolph, it did, yeah. Respectfully, it did all of the above, but one cannot deny that those who happen to be of a darker hue were more greatly impacted. So race is still at the epicenter of it.
Well, why would race be at the epicenter of it?
Because black people are the one working those jobs. They're the ones living in conditions that made them more susceptible to catching the disease. They are the service workers, et cetera, et cetera. I can do this all day long. That's why race is at the epicenter of it, Adolph.
Well, I think there's a problem there too, Tavis.
Okay.
While disproportionate numbers of Black people worked those jobs and lived in those conditions,
right?
In the economy as a whole, most of the people who worked those jobs and lived in those conditions weren't Black or brown, for that matter. So So that's what I mean about the difference between relative and absolute. And if we focus on the fact that Black people or brown people are disproportionately those are situated among those who get the fuzzy end of the lollipop,
yeah,
then that suggests a strategy of not changing the patterns of distribution, and in fact, I mean, this is what anti-disparitarian politics does, but calls for parity at every level of who gets the best part of the lollipop and who gets the fuzzy end. But that's still going to leave, and especially if what we're talking about is a regressive economy that's become more and more aggressive, and even more under Trump. That's still going to wind up leaving most or disproportionately large numbers of Black people at the bottom, but the number or ratios in that ideal model would be equalized at the top, right? I mean, this is something I've been saying for a long time now, that the problem with making disparity the central focus is that means that you can have a society that would be just if 1% of the population controls 95% of the resources, just so long as that 1% was, 12% Black, 14% Hispanic, 50% women, and whatever. But especially considering that the driving impetus of the political economy and the patterns of distribution of good stuff and bad stuff in the society for the last 50 years or more has been such that the number of people at the bottom continues to grow and the number of people at the top gets smaller and smaller. Blacks, if you have Black parity at the top, you're still likely to have a disproportionately large number of Black people at the bottom, except maybe ideally, I don't know, they'd be 12% of the nurses' aides.
No,
right?
Yeah. Now, I'm watching my clock here. I hear your point, and yet I don't think that respectfully addresses the question that I'm driving toward, which I'm going to drive out a little bit harder when we come forward and give Kenneth W a chance to respond. Again, my question is this: how does long-standing white animus, to quote your book, against non-white peoples not sufficiently and adequately explain deepening injustice past, present, or frankly into the future? That's the question for Kenneth W when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. A Chicago church is welcoming Texas Democrats to their service. While attending Mass Sunday at St. Sabrina Church, Black Texas Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins said they're fighting against racist gerrymandering.
What we're fighting for is democracy.
Texas Democrats fled to Illinois to stop Republicans from enacting new congressional maps that would give the GOP 5 more seats. The official portrait of former President Barack Obama has been moved at the White House. According to CNN, the Obama portrait is now hanging in a corner at the top of the stairwell of the grand staircase. The move was reportedly made at the direction of President Trump. And the application process is now open for those who want to volunteer for the 2026 FIFA World Cup in North Texas. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks got another W Sunday night. The Sparks' 94-91 win last night over the Seattle Storm is their 10th win in the last 13 games. Derica Hamby converted a layup with 5.6 seconds left in the fourth quarter to seal it. The Sparks at 15-16 have a chance to reach 500 for the first time since May 18th. They play the defending WNBA champs, the New York Liberty, Tuesday night at Crypto.com Arena. The Chargers are 2-0 4-0 in the preseason after beating New Orleans 27-13. The star of the game was Chargers rookie cornerback Eric Rodgers from Rutgers. Rodgers had 2 interceptions. He ran back 43 yards for a touchdown. The Chargers play the Rams Saturday afternoon at SoFi. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is scheduled to practice Monday for the first time in training camp if he's healthy. Stafford is trying to recover from a slipped disc in his lower back. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You gotta dip your chicken strips. Hey, this is Kiani.
And this is Tabitha.
And a little thing we love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips
is all the different sauces we can dip them in. I like to line up all my favorite sauces so that in every bite, I have a different flavor. Then with the tenderness of the chicken, the juiciness of it, it's all there.
And for me, I like to mix my sauces so I get a little tang and I get a little sweetness all in one bite.
That's what makes it for me. Like, that's what does it for me.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the summer of Chick-fil-A chicken strips and sauces. Order now on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian, with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Warning! The IRS is in full collection mode for 2025, and no one with tax debt is safe. If you owe back taxes or haven't filed, liens, levies, garnishments, they're coming fast and without warning. Your paycheck gone, your bank account frozen, your assets seized. But there's still time. If you act now, call Republic Tax Relief, the trusted team that knows how to fight. Veteran-owned and proudly A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They bring the grit and experience to stand up to the IRS and win. The IRS Fresh Start programs are still available. The programs can reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. If you're living check to check, and most of us are, then call, because this is your chance to breathe again. It only takes 5 minutes to find out if you qualify. The call is free, but if you wait, it could cost you everything. Call now before the IRS calls you. 800-259-4546. That's 800-259-4546. Find out if you qualify today. 800-259-4546 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren, two brilliant scholars who have together written a book called Black Studies, Culture, Politics, and the Evasion of Inequality, the Farce this time. and the book publishes this month, and I'm delighted to have them on for a pre-interview, as it were, before the book even comes out, and I thank them both, Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren, for choosing this program on which to have this conversation again in advance of publication on August 27th, I believe, of this month. All right, Kenneth Warren, I posed this question before we went to break. I want to jump right into it, make the most of the time that we have. You and Adolph argue in this book that not understanding the following, and just hold on for the following, not understanding the following leaves us ill-equipped to handle the continuing challenges in the present. What you're suggesting that we don't understand is how white animus against black people and other non-white people does not sufficiently and adequately explain deepening injustice, past injustice, that is, or present inequality. So, what are we missing, sir, about white animus?
Well, thanks. Thanks for that question. During the interim, I heard mention of the gerrymandering on the part of the Republican Party in the state of Texas that has led Democratic legislators in that state to sort of flee the state in order not to or to try to prevent that from happening. And that, I think, might be one way to get at the way our argument works. And I could take it all the way back to Frederick Douglass, because part of the point of the gerrymander, it's clearly a gerrymander on behalf of the Republican Party against the Democratic Party, a political difference. Now, what we do have in our arsenal of sort of civil rights responses to gerrymandering, and it's increasingly being undermined. But what we do have is a way of challenging gerrymandering if the motive, if we could sort of demonstrate that the motivation is racist. And that the goals are racialization. Frederick Douglass, writing back in the 1890s, was talking about the way in which in the South, then the Democratic Party, the Southern Democrats, who were the party of the planter class, were imposing their rule, and they were pursuing the strategy of disfranchisement of the black population. And he says, it's not he says the South doesn't fear the Negro. It fears the supremacy of the Republican Party. It fears the party that is challenging its rule. And he says, when the Southern Democrats talk of Negro ignorance, Negro supremacy, and this is in the third chapter of our books, it means this and only this. It fears that the Republican Party is standing in the way of its goals. What's going on in Texas is the fear that the Democratic Party is challenging the goals of the Republican Party, which represents, without apology, the interests of a small portion of the population. And what we lack, and Douglass points this out in the 1890s, is we lack a political language that focuses on the injustice that occurs when one party is able, in essence, to exert single party rule, thereby disfranchising. Yes, it's disfranchising black voters disproportionately, but think of all of the members of the Democratic Party in so many states who really do not have a say in setting the priorities, establishing the policies for themselves or their constituencies. And if we reduce the question to race, we don't get at, and I think you can see it again and again, we don't get at what Douglass says: the South doesn't have a Negro problem; it has a political problem.
But I respect
There's one party that's acting on behalf of the people.
Yeah, respectfully,
and that party is being attacked.
Respectfully, Kenneth, here's where we part ways, though. Respectfully, I don't think that we are the ones who are reducing it to race. That's where we differ. It is the Republican Party that's reduced it to race. For you to define gerrymandering in the way that these maps are being drawn right now in Florida and in Texas and beyond, sir, for you to frame that as a mere political difference, that was your term. This is far more than just a political difference. They are cracking and stacking. They are drawing these lines. They're twisting like a pretzel to draw these lines to do one particular thing, to deny black political power. You can frame that any way you want to frame it. You can give me any intellectual construct you want to give me respectfully, but I'm not the one. We're not the one reducing it to race. That is their end and aim. To reduce black political power, and for you respectfully to frame that or to define that as a mere political difference, I think completely misses the point respectfully. And you're the scholar here, not me.
For me, political difference isn't mere. Political difference is super important.
Right.
And part of the point that Douglas makes, and part of the thing I would ask you, if black people voted for the Republican Party, would we have the gerrymandering going on that we see? And the answer is going to be no with respect to black people, because the whole point is for the Republican Party to consolidate its rule. And if black people, I beg to differ. The Democratic Party in the South.
I beg to differ. Let me just, I hear your point, but you're misreading my point, my POV on this. I beg to differ. If black people voted en masse for the Republican Party the way we do the Democratic Party, you better believe that the Democratic Party, sir, to answer your question, would be doing the same exact thing. They'd be doing the same exact thing because nobody really cares about black people. They don't care about black political power. They care about their own ends and aims. So there's your answer. If black people right now started voting for Republicans and Democrats found themselves out of power, they too would do the same thing to draw districts to deny black people power and influence. Of course they would.
Well, I have a question, if it's okay for me to ask.
Sure.
Then what would be the ultimate takeaway from that, if that's the case? I mean,
the takeaway is this: that race is a part of everything in America. Johnny Cochran was right, Adolph. There's your answer.
Well, look. All right, let me say this, because often enough, the character of the argument that, like the ones that Ken and I are making in this book,
right,
and I'm here today, gets heard as being something like somebody like John McWhorter would contend.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And my response to that, and people have asked me about this, about how I differ from McWhorter. And my response to that has always been that McWhorter and I seem to be running parallel to each other for about the first half block of a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, the distance gets greater and greater and greater until the very end. Because keys, like for me, and in this moment at least, I can speak for Ken too, keys to the statement that you quoted are sufficiently and adequately explained. Neither one of us would ever argue, and I think you know me well enough to know that I wouldn't.
Right.
Contend that racism is not a real factor in American life, and that race is not important or not significant as a variable in assessing distribution of good stuff and bad stuff. Mm-hmm. But I would say parenthetically for another discussion, to quote Cornell, yes, it's true that race matters, but the real question is how it matters.
Yeah.
And what the takeaways are.
Yeah.
But that would offer like another sort of grounding for our argument. In the weeks and months and first couple of years after Katrina, when activists in New Orleans and elsewhere around the country, but the ones in New Orleans were the ones who really counted, kept insisting that racism was the sufficient explanation for the patterns of inequality, both in the impact that the floods had on people and in the ways to respond. My argument was to ask, well, how does focusing on whether or the extent to which racism what was a factor, help us mobilize the fight against charterization, the fight against.
That's a legitimate question. I'm watching my clock here, Adolph. That is a legitimate question, and yet it cannot be disconnected from the fact that George W. Bush left black people to die on rooftops. Had they been a bunch of white folk, Adolph, you know that wouldn't have happened. So I hear your question, and I take your point that focusing on that didn't make the cavalry come any sooner. I get that. But I'm asking you to consider and just acknowledge that they left those black folk there to die because they were in fact black. And if they'd been white, we never would have seen that. I feel like I'm fighting lions with a switch in this conversation. Speaking of Cornel West, where is that Negro when I need him? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
As I said at the top of this hour, there's no way you can do justice to a book this dense that has these two brilliant scholars writing essays on a variety of things. I'm just trying to get a frame for you to understand what's in the book when you get inside of it. Adolph, I want to go back to Kenneth Warren right quick here and talk about solutions. I don't want this hour to end without hearing your solutions to some of these ills that ail Black America. But very quickly here, back to your New Orleans piece. You were not suggesting, I hope we don't disagree on this, Adolph. George W. Bush left those black folk on rooftops to die. Do we disagree on that statement? They ignored them.
Oh, no, we don't disagree on that at all.
All right,
no,
good.
Yeah.
Lord help you, peace. All right, Kenneth Warren, talk to me about solutions. I mean, we again, I can't do justice to all this in a matter of minutes, but if in fact you and Adolph are arguing in the text as you are, that white animus alone does not explain how we got here, where we are now, present inequality, or for that matter, where we're headed into the future, what are black folk to do?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward in some ways, although it's a very difficult thing.
Okay.
Which is to say that we have to recognize and join forces with those who assert the importance of the public good, whether we're talking about healthcare, whether we're talking about education, or whatever, for all Americans. And this will disproportionately benefit Black Americans, right? That we need a politics that begins with the fact that most Americans are working Americans. And that is the thing that we all hold in common. I mean, one of the reasons we go back in our book to the 1890s and the suppression, excuse me, of the populist insurgency was a moment when Black Americans, Black laborers. Sorry about that. Got a frog in my throat at an inappropriate moment.
No, it happens. It happens, man.
Black laborers, small farmers, white in the South, joined forces to challenge, and effectively challenge for a while. That's the reason that the forces of repression had to be so powerful at that moment, because the challenge was a significant challenge on the basis of trying to reorder Southern society from the standpoint of those who were doing the work in this society, and that was the Black freedmen, but it was also a whole set of white laborers who were not served well by that regime, and that's where we are now. We need a broad, worker union-based movement to assert the importance of the public good against those who are ruthlessly attacking it at the present moment.
That's part of, and I'll let Adolph Reed have the last word when we come forward here. That's part of what William Barber is attempting to do. He's been saying as loud as he can. He's using his bullhorn every day. Just on this program a week or two ago, talking about uniting working people, uniting poor people, and that message, Adolph, is falling on deaf ears. It's falling on deaf ears in the Republican Party, and frankly, it's falling on deaf ears in the Democratic Party. So there is somebody that's yelling that from the rooftops. But to what end? That's the question for Adolph Reed when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. BillsHappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to BillsHappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At BillsHappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person. And Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to BillsHappen.com. BillsHappen.com for the cash you need now. BillsHappen.com.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
As you can likely tell from this hour of conversation with Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren, I disagree vehemently with their view on the impact, even to this day, of white animus. That said, with all due respect to both of them, their book, which I've read, does in fact incorporate essential historical, contemporary, and literary perspectives on black cultural criticism and attempts to explore the full portrait of racial injustice and inequality in America. As I said to you at the top of the hour, no way I could do justice to the full portrait that they attempt to paint in this text. So take that for what it is. I highly encourage you to read. I say all the time that this program is at its best when we're challenging people to re-examine the assumptions they hold, to help them expand their inventory of ideas. And I am never afraid to engage a book or a conversation, a book by Adolph Reed and Kenneth Warren in this instance, that challenges me to re-examine my assumptions, helps me expand my inventory of ideas to see whether or not I think I'm right or wrong about the viewpoints that I hold. I've got 2 minutes left. I'll give it to you, Adolph Reed, for a final thought. No question, but what is your final thought, sir?
All right, thanks. Thanks, Tavis. And I'll begin by saying I really appreciate the generosity both of having us on and the way you characterize the book. But I also think that fundamentally, the differences between us aren't that great, right? And we don't deny the significance of racism, right? I mean, how could we really, unless we had an ideological motive? But I want to draw attention to a couple of moments, right, from our past that might be helpful here. One is 1944, Howard University historian Rayford Logan published a collection called What the Negro Wants. And it was a cross-section from a number of prominent black individuals across the ideological spectrum, and on how they saw and what they hoped for America coming out of World War II.
Right.
2 lines of universal agreement ran through that book. One was that segregation had to go. The other was that even conservatives, as well as trade union leaders like A. Philip Randolph and Willard Townsend from the transit workers, agreed that there were 2 necessary conditions for continued black advancement beyond civil rights law. One was expansion of the sector of public goods, the social state. Okay. And the other was the growth of industrial trade unionism, because they understood that a necessary condition for black Americans' improvement was expanded Social Security for everybody.
Adolph Reed, I am out of time. I regret that. I hear those 2 points. I've literally written them down. And because you appear on this program with some regularity, for which I'm grateful, we will pick up on those 2 points about how we advance based on that historical analysis the next time you're on the program. Fair enough?
Sounds great.
I appreciate you. The book is called Black Studies, Cultural Politics, and the Evasion of Inequality, the Farce, this time written by these brilliant scholars, Adolph Reed Jr. and Kenneth Warren, who I've honored in having on this program. When we come forward, he wasn't here when I needed him, but Cornel West will be here. Now this Negro shows up. At the top of hour 2, you're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. A Chicago church is welcoming Texas Democrats